everyone. Ralph here again. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about my Man with No Name costume. So, for those of you who know me personally, know I'm a pretty big Clint Eastwood fan, if not one of the bigger ones that most people will know. Particularly, the whole sort of dollar series has always been one of my favorite movie series, and I really like the Man with No Name character. It's probably one of the big screen's most prominent Western heroes, and he had just such a unique design to him that I've always wanted to put a Man with No Name costume together. And I've done that over the last couple of years. I've really looked at different vendors and different places where you can buy stuff from, and I feel like I learned quite a bit about what's out there, things that maybe you should avoid, and kind of piecing together sort of what I think is a really decent looking Eastwood slash No Name costume. Before I get into actually showing you the different pieces and kind of maybe thinking about what to avoid, I wanted to kind of bring to your attention that this particular costume is actually kind of an amalgamate of the Fistful of Dollars version and For a Few Dollars More. So it kind of uses bits and pieces of both of those films to really kind of make it sort of one ultimate Blondie costume. But it's not 100% Fistful, and it's not 100% For a Few Dollars, and it's kind of good and the bad, the ugly-ish, but I still think it's 100% sort of Blondie slash No Name slash Joe Manco, which is what he was called in one of the movies too. I'm already wearing the shirt. The shirt's actually pretty important. Oftentimes when we look at sort of the screenshots and the films, it looks like one solid blue shirt, but it actually isn't. It's pinstriped if you look closely. And it has a very particular collar to it. The collar's rounded at the top. It does have pockets, but it's also kind of short, right? So Eastwood in the films really kind of wore a few items that were maybe a couple of sizes too small, but this shirt in particular, it comes like this, so it's kind of cut to the right length. It may actually be a little bit bigger on me than I think it should be, but my fiance is an amazing seamstress, so I may just ask her to take it in. But the color is really close to screen accurate, and the collar definitely is. This shirt's made by StraightLine Collectibles. A lot of what I'm going to be showing you today was made by a company called StraightLine Collectibles. Their main store is actually on Amazon. So that's the shirt. Pretty nice looking. I'd probably wear it outside of costuming, but I think it's cool. The next item I wanted to show you is sort of this wrist cuff. So also made by StraightLine Collectibles. It's pretty good for what it is. It was cheap. I think it was like 20 bucks or something like that. It is leather. It's a little big, but and it kind of, the more you wear it, the more loose it gets. But it's got the I don't know if you can see. It's got the Ace of Spades right there. He wore this in Fistful, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not in every movie, but I do think it adds a lot to the costume. So I decided to add that to mine. I'm also wearing sort of the other main piece of the base costume, which is like his little neckerchief. That's not something costume specific that you can find anywhere. I just got like a silk neckerchief that I kind of wrap around. Although I will say the fact that it's silk is kind of annoying because it has a tendency to kind of unfold and look way bigger than it needs to. So I may just get like a regular cloth, something that's not as smooth, so it doesn't like constantly fold open like this. Let's talk about some other costume elements that are important because we're working our way up to the most important pieces, which arguably are the poncho and the hat. But let's talk about the sheepskin vest and the gun belt, as well as the boots and stuff. All right, so the sheepskin vest. Here's what I got from StraightLine Collectibles. Again, same company that made these cufflinks. I think it also actually produced this shirt. So again, Amazon StraightLine Collectibles is where you'll find them. But this is their sort of sheepskin vest. It's not the greatest. I'm actually thinking about upgrading it. I'll tell you where I'm going to get my upgraded version from. But you know, it serves its purpose. When I was looking for these guys, the only thing they had on offer size-wise was medium and above. I'm 6'1". I'm not the bulkiest guy, as you can see. I'm kind of slim, but that's why I like wearing this costume, because I feel like posturally it kind of works. You know, Clint Eastwood wasn't the biggest guy in the first dollar series. He definitely got beefier as it advanced. But yeah, this vest, I'll put it on as I talk. When it first came, it was super big. It still is. I feel like slightly too big. It also doesn't really have a lot of the patterning that you expect to see on the sheepskin vest. Because if you look at sort of images from the films, there are definitely sort of patches where this whole thing is like sewn together, whereas this is mostly just one solid piece. But yeah, my fiance tailored it for me a little bit, so it's a little bit more form-fitting. And it works pretty good, I think. It's a nice looking vest. But, you know, these edges near the shoulder, I'm probably going to maybe fold them over so you see more of the wool. I think it looks a little bit better that way. But this is probably the least intricate part of my costume. But again, StraightLine Collectibles, let me just turn around and show you. That's where I got this from. And, you know, it is important. You have to get it if you're going to be no-naming it up. So let's talk a little bit more about the gun belt and the gun prop that I have, and then we'll talk about the boots. So let's actually talk about the gun first. So this one is actually the Colt 1851 Navy Special. It is a cartridge conversion pistol. It doesn't actually exist in real life. I mean, there are firing replicas out there, but this one was made for the movie, and replicas have been made since. But this one was actually not featured in Fistful of Dollars. It made its debut in For a Few Dollars More. But it has the nice sort of, I don't know if you can tell, but it has a silver snake. There you go. Really cool looking replica. The Colt that was featured in the first movie is, you know, more like a regular old revolver. It's much shorter and bulkier, but I really always liked this design. This particular replica was made also by StraightLine Collectibles. It sounds like I'm pushing them, but really I don't think there's anybody out there that makes as many props that are sort of no-name specific. So Colt Navy Special 1851 conversion. It's a prop. Obviously it doesn't really fire, but it does have mechanisms in place, so you can kind of play around with it. But yeah, really cool. It's hefty too. So it's nice, and it sits well in the holster. And the holster was also made by StraightLine Collectibles. So this holster actually is pretty close to screen accurate. So Eastwood actually had this holster for a number of Westerns. He owned it personally, and I guess just brought it to the set quite often, but he had this even in rawhide. So it's kind of really thick leather. It needs some weathering, but I also got the bullets to put in the holster, so it kind of looks like it actually has ammo on it on the belt. But this is what it looks like. I'm going to put it on and show you kind of what it looks like when you actually add it to. So here's what the holster looks like on the jeans. These jeans are just regular old black Levi's, straight cut. Nothing special, but they drape pretty nicely. Maybe I'll hang it a little bit lower. My current belt's not the belt I usually wear with this. I have an actual just regular old gun belt that is similar in fabric to the holster belt, so it looks a little bit nicer. But I don't even remember where I got that. I think I got it off of eBay. But here's what it looks like. Pretty nice. Sits fairly nicely, and I'll do some better video shots at the end of this video so you can see the whole thing kind of together. But here's what it looks like. Looks pretty good, I think. So let's talk about boots and spurs. Probably the easiest thing to kind of put together. I don't think anybody really is going to notice if these are off as much as the rest of the costume. But here are some sort of suede-like boots that I found a while ago that I think are fairly close to what things look like on the screen, except they're definitely lighter on screen, more sandy colored, and definitely have more of that suede texture to them where, you know, it's kind of rough and coarse. And they're also, I think, a little bit pointier in the film. These are very square-toed, but they work nicely. These spurs, I think I actually bought them when my fiance and I were on a trip like way long ago, completely unrelated to actually putting this costume together. But they end up working pretty nicely with the overall boots. And again, you'll see more how that works with like the jeans and stuff towards the end of the video when I'll show off some sort of full body stuff. But these are the boots. They were really inexpensive. I think they were like 80 bucks. And they were called something like suede vintage Western boots. And I think I even may have gotten them off of eBay. So that's these guys. But they work pretty nicely. So boots. All right, so let's talk about arguably the most important items when you're making your no-name costume, other than the backwoods cigar, of course. Those are the hat and the poncho. I'm going to start off with the poncho and give you guys some pointers because it's really tough to find nice-looking ones, but I got a really awesome one that I want to show second and tell you guys about. I actually bought one, I think it was like 90 or 100 bucks off of Amazon. I'm not sure who the vendor was anymore, but don't cheap out on the poncho. So the poncho in the film is actually kind of olive in color, and it looked brown in some of the shots, but it actually is an olive green poncho with very particular design. The first poncho I bought was this guy, and I really should have looked much more carefully at the overall design because it not only is it not screen accurate, this design near the collar needs to be way bigger. You'll see when I bring out the second poncho how off it is, but it's also way too thick. So I think the film poncho may have been made out of like a blanket material. It was actually very light. You know, he was easily capable of draping it over his shoulder. It kind of draped in a nice way. Where it wasn't stiff, like it really moved with Clint as he was moving around. This guy is just garbage. Again, this was a $100 poncho. Let me just hang it up over here for a second so you can kind of see. Let's take a look at this fabric. You'll see it's very coarse wool, which, you know, it's nice for a decorative poncho, but it's way off. If you look at the tassels at the bottom, they're black and white, nowhere close to being screen accurate. Let me prop you guys back down, and I'll show you sort of the better poncho I got. Now this thing, I think, is probably, there's a lot of companies that make replicas of sort of a screen accurate poncho, but I think this is one of the better ones out there, if not the best. I know Cimarron makes it, the gun maker Cimarron makes a replica of the hat and the poncho, but I think this one's even better than those. So this poncho is made by a company called Larry Green Productions. You can already see just the way it kind of flails and falls. It's much lighter, and the pattern is super accurate. So if you look, color is nice, and look at that neck pattern and how much bigger it is. Way better than, you know, the other poncho. It's also the right length. It falls really nicely on me, and again, I'll show you that when I show some full costume shots. But Larry Green Productions. Now this is actually really pretty pricey for a poncho. I mean, it's 300 bucks, but it's well worth it, I think. If you're serious about putting something like this together, it makes all the difference. Like, it really looks 1,000 times better than the other one. I'll show you a quick side by side so you can see the difference between these two. So let's take a look. So look at how different the pattern is on the left, which is the more accurate version, compared to what's on the right. The fabric also is much nicer for the poncho on the left. So Larry Green Productions, definitely recommend getting that poncho from them. I think they only have like two sizes, like a medium and a large. I'm 6'1", about 170 pounds, so I'm pretty slim. I ended up getting the smaller of the two, and it fits perfect. And again, I'll show you guys that later. Now, let's talk about the hat. Hat's pretty important. You know, it's kind of a deal breaker. You have an amazing costume, but a terrible hat, and it just doesn't work. So this hat was made by a company called Spaghetti Western Replicas. I'm not sure where they're located anymore. I think they're somewhere out in Colorado. I'm not 100% sure. If I'm wrong, I'll update the video description. But they make these hats, custom make them, so you give your head size and they'll actually create one for you. I did buy a different headband. The one they gave, I think, was a little bit too thick. This headband was actually produced by StraightLine Collectibles, again. But this is the hat. It's got nice double stitching on the rim. And I think shape-wise, overall, it's very close to the screen-used hat. I added the bullet holes myself to be more in line with for a few dollars more. Instead of just fistful of dollars, I think it adds a little bit more character and personality to the hat. But it's really tough finding a good Eastwood hat. More often than not, it's not tall enough, it's not boxy enough, and I think the brim is too wide. I think still looking at this, the shape is there, but I think the brim still might be slightly too wide. That's just me nitpicking, but that hat was very unique looking. And because it had such a small brim and he kind of wore it sideways. But this is the hat that I ended up going for. I think it really looks great, whether you wear it or just display it with the poncho and the rest of your sort of outfit. But I think it looks really awesome. So Spaghetti Western Replicas. I think this hat was around $200, and they custom make them, so it takes like 4 or 5 weeks for it to be delivered. But yeah, well worth it. It's comfortable, looks great. So all that remains is me throwing this stuff on, and I'll just shoot a couple of shots so you get a sense of what this looks like when you put everything together. But I do hope this helps you kind of figure out your Clint Eastwood costume, whether you're going to wear it or not, or if you just want to have it on display, because it is so iconic and awesome. But I do hope this kind of helps you figure out where to get what and how to go about putting it together. So in the next couple of shots, you'll see it on, and I'll see you guys in the next video.